Hello and welcome to Kinship Earth Connections. My name is Lauren Archer and I'm the Executive Director at Kinship Earth. And today's special guest is Stuart Valentine. So now what I'd like to do is introduce Stuart Valentine, and he is our featured influencer today. We are all influencers here. Stuart has been an influencer in the realm of impact investing. He is the senior wealth manager and co-owner and co-founder of Centered Wealth. And he has played an active role in the positive impact investing movement since the year 2000. He is passionate about building the personal relationships and networks necessary to create meaningful systemic change in the world of finance towards a more sustainable, life-supporting investment model. From 2010 to 2014, Stuart served on the drafting committee of the Transforming Finance Group, founded by Hazel Henderson. He serves on the Research Advisory Board of Ethical Markets Media in the area of social venture capital and sustainable community development. Stuart authored an article series on socially responsible investing and its relationship to the hero's journey. In 2017, Stuart co-authored the book Imagining Philanthropy for Life, a whole system strategy to transform finance and grow true wealth. He is often invited to speak nationally about the conscious investment process and megatrend drivers behind the growing green economy. Stuart is an active member of his community and serves as the board chair of the Sustainable Living Coalition, a nonprofit focused on facilitating community resources to optimize the conditions for growing sustainable communities. He is also the board president of the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, SILT, dedicated to permanently protecting land to grow healthy food for generations to come. And since 2009, Stuart has been part of the adjunct faculty at Maharishi International University, teaching in the MBA and Sustainable Living departments on the theme of environmental, social, and governance analysis, impact investing, sustainable community development, and transformational entrepreneurship. Stuart's undergrad degree is in renewable energy systems with a minor in environmental design from the Evergreen State College, and he completed his MBA at MIU in 1986. He lives with his wife, Ellen, on their pastoral homestead in Iowa. And without further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to Stuart. And Stuart, if you would kick us off, please, with just a little bit about your background and your involvement in KINS. How did your involvement in KINS come to be? And then give us an update on what you're doing now, please.
Very good. Thank you, Lauren. So background on KINS, man, I think it's been my whole life was sort of led me right to the doorstep of Esalen in 2007 with many co-influencers on this call. I mean, I think we ought to call it the co-influencer series, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for many, many of you on this call. So I thank you all for your intellectual brilliance and passion for this idea of transformation. And I think, frankly, in 2007, it was you, Hank Patton. You were the cause of me showing up at Esalen for those 5 days, thanks to Hazel Henderson, on the theme of intergenerational finance. And Frank Dixon was there, and guess who else was there? A certain person named Susan Davis. So that was the beginning of my journey into the KINS realm, was meeting Susan over that period of time, exploring the domain of intergenerational finance. Remember Chief Seattle's, statement about taking into consideration, all decisions today take into consideration the next 7 generations. So that's how I arrived and in this community. And I think the element that is something that I am personally very interested in cultivating here is a deepening understanding of the primacy of consciousness in informing our choices, both as individuals and as a community. And I really noticed that with Susan's principle about sitting at the table of unknowing and co-creating with spirit, God, nature, however you want to refer to it, uh, the evolutionary way forward. And George, you mentioned transformation from a war world into a life supporting world. I really do believe this is the challenge of the time, that we have to somehow outgrow the, the paradigm of what I call colonial command and control and move into a cooperative, co-creative um, cosmology of life. And so that's, I get to play that theme out in my role as, a financial advisor, and exploring how we can work with this system of economics, this world of this domain we call finance, and the practice of investing. How can we actually start reclaiming the force of life throughout those three domains? Because we've created an increasingly separate and contrary to life system of money. And unless we sort of reweave that back into a biomimetic model, nature will scrap this experiment, this human experiment, and start another one. So I think it's our opportunity, given the community that we are part of and the insights that we hold, to explore every facet and practice that we can. And I just happen to exercise it through the domain of money and investment. But as Hazel Henderson is fond of saying, and I truly believe this is a top to bottom redesign job, and everyone needs to be at the table of unknowing and exploring the possibilities for reinvention in support of life. So with that, I think what I can do is just share my journey and through a pictorial model that I've evolved and developed to help me know where I am on the roadmap of my own design. Many of you have seen this, but for those who haven't, I'll just do a brief run through of what I call the centered wealth tree, which is greatly influenced by my own experience as a long-term practitioner of transcendental meditation, and one who believes strongly in the regular dynamic of transcendence, and also woven into the principles of KINS. So it's a way that, again, it's really, frankly, it's for others to understand what it is I am attempting to accomplish in my role as a financial advisor and investment manager. But I often look at it just to say, okay, where am I in this map? It's my roadmap, if you will. So Lauren, I have the image here. Do you want me just to share it? Share
Yes,
screens?
you should be able to share screen freely. Thank
There
you.
we go. All right. So this is the centered wealth tree model, which really came out of spontaneous experience. There's a great Vedic saying, I don't know the actual original Sanskrit, but the translation is curving back on myself, I create again and again. And through the regular practice of meditation, you have this opportunity to fall into this domain of transcendence, of silence, of settled awareness, and allow the intelligence of nature to flow. And it was actually at a 3-day symposium we held in Ojai, California. It was Hazel Henderson, Ronaldo Brutico, myself, who organized this New Economy conference in 2009. And was held up at the property at Meditation Mount in Ojai, which if any of you have not been to Meditation Mount in Ojai, I recommend you put it on your list. It is truly a facility and a location that has deep resonance and wakes up creativity. And it was a spontaneous presentation. I began sketching this model out. But as you can see from the idea here is that it's a biomimetic model, That is, we are a function of nature's evolution here on this planet Earth. And so let's be thinking about our money decisions, our economic system, our system of finance in the context of natural systems. And that is the job of the 21st century, is to reclaim economics as a natural system compared to where we have arrived at today. And so the main theme here, of course, is just that consciousness is primary. Consciousness is infinite. Consciousness is embedded in our very awareness. It is also the home of all the laws of nature, and all intelligence flows in this field of consciousness, of which we all share. We are all participants in this field of consciousness. And it's heartening for me because it reminds me that I am part of a universal field effect. And just as a grain of sand contributes to the beach, each one of us contributes to the wholeness of this universal field, this living system we call life. So that to me is engaging. I'm compelled by that. I want to participate, and I want to bring all of myself into that vision of possibility for life. And one thing that is clear about life is every single life form goes through a process of emerging from this unmanifest field of consciousness. Blink, here comes a moment of conception. And in our case, a heart starts beating, or a seed germinates, or whatever the transformational process that brings that life form into being. That life form shares the same root as you and I. And again, this is kind of a way to remind ourselves of the unified field of consciousness out of which all life, all existence, all manifestation emerges. Well, from that celestial soup, we come down into planet Earth, a conception moment happens, a birth occurs, you and I emerge, and we're simply a bundle of emotion. Through our maturation, we go through the school of hard knocks, otherwise known as experiences, and we learn and grow and into the context of this moment here today. And in the context of the investment process, I really spend a lot of time when a new client relationship comes on, establishing the cosmology of consciousness first, a reminder that we are in service of life, and this social invention we call money, which is a fabulous invention, in my opinion. It's a wonderful way to communicate and inform through the simple natural law of supply and demand. So there is, in my view, a very important role for money in this more beautiful world in our hearts we know is possible. Thank you, Charles Eisenstein. I love that quote. But the money has a role, and we simply need to reassert through an understanding of the cosmology of consciousness, through our set of beliefs, thoughts, ethics, values, how to plan for and organize our financial circumstances into supporting the growing green economy, which is the canopy of this tree. And for simplicity's sake, I've simply highlighted some of the high points of what you might think of as the growing green economy. But as you can well imagine, using the tree as a metaphor, the myriad branches of human endeavor that are facilitated through money and investment. These are but just some high points. We use in the public marketplace, we've gone from single bottom line thinking, where profit first is the only consideration. In fact, famously, Milton Friedman in a Wall Street Journal editorial in 1971 famously wrote that the only social responsibility of a corporation is to make a financial return for its shareholder and nothing else. Well, that's a pretty radical, and yet it was embraced, adopted, and has been the source code driving the debt-based capitalist model we live in. Well, thankfully, people like Susan Davis showed up in 1988 and Hazel Henderson even before that. And God knows people I don't even know who contributed to rethinking that very myopic role of investment and the role of the corporation, to where today we sit within a rather robust emerging field of what is known as environmental, social, and governance screening, where we actually look at, yes, the financial flows of our corporation, but we also are scoring and measuring very carefully now the environmental impact, the social impact, and the governance practices of that company. So we now have gone from the single bottom line to the triple bottom line. And, as in any new paradigm, you follow that Gandhian sort of process, which is first they ignore you, second they ridicule you, third they fight you, and fourth they join you. Well, I would say in the 40 odd years I've been watching the socially responsible evolution, and I think, Lisa, you're on the call, you would bear this out, that we've seen all of those, haven't we? We've seen the ignoring, the ridiculing, the fighting. The fighting is still going on, by the way, but more and more Wall Street is beginning to embrace. In fact, you don't hear the word socially responsible investing much anymore because Wall Street needed to rebrand it as their own, and their branding is ESG, or environmental, social, governance investing. So that's all right, well and good. It's part of the transformational process. It's still in the early days where greenwashing is rampant. Let me tell you, I mean, I'm somewhat embarrassed even to be associated with the ESG community in some ways, because I know how much of this segment of the market is being gamed through kind of a greenwashing kind of lens. But I also understand that it's the process of change, and developing a theory of change for this community, I think, would be very important, something that we could collectively put our attention on, using some of that Buckminster Fuller logic about understanding that change is not like a light switch on and off when it comes to human culture. It's an ongoing, ever-present hero's journey of engagement and transformation. And so I find some comfort in that. I can relax and breathe a little bit, knowing that I am part of the process. All of us are part of the process. And when it comes to money, there's a really key choice. Is my money feeding the war world, as George referred to it, or is my money supporting the emerging life-supporting context of triple bottom line? And I would even say, if we start understanding the role of consciousness and my intimate communion within the field of consciousness, we have to actually go beyond triple bottom line and start thinking of quadruple bottom line, where it's a self-referral process about my contribution as an individual living being, communing with the intelligence of life. And my choices are in service of that evolutionary force of life, including my money and investments. So obviously we could spend a lot of time going into each of these branches. That's not the point of this right now, but you can get a sense of what the portfolios I work with with the flavor they might take on as we are searching for investments that meets the needs of the individual and of life. And in the book, which the last real active KINS group I was involved in was Susan had started it one iteration before I joined. Was the concept was reimagining philanthropy, and it was out of that KINS group that the book Imagining Philanthropy for Life emerged. And I put philanthropy at the top of the tree to indicate kind of the capstone of the core taproot, I think, that drives this universal evolution, which is the force of love. Literally, the love of humanity in the case of philanthropy. So to summarize this in the flow that I attempt to generate in the relational dynamic within the centered wealth investment sphere is that to remind all of us that the most primary investment, the most important investment at this stage of human evolution is the investment of communion within yourself, because it is through that connection with the infinite wholeness of consciousness that right action and the information and intelligence can find its way through your unique communication amplifier into the commitments that we make as a group. That is the KINS dynamic. I believe in this principle of birds of a feather flock together, and each one of us, through regularly cultivating communion within myself to the field of consciousness, emerging from that experience, spontaneously communicating the interest, the passion, the direction that this biological unit called Stuart is heading in, naturally, through birds of a feather flock together, attracts like-minded beings. And it is in that commitment zone where the KINS dynamics and principles are so valuable that we generate community. And where I think this transformation with respect to economics and finance and investing needs to go is to remind ourselves that the purpose, if you will, of investment is to support life and is to lay the foundation and runway for ourselves and others into the fullness of wealth. And wealth is in the network of relationships that we build, not only within the human community, but within our consciousness, to the universal field of life, and to all life forms on this planet. That is the ultimate source, course, and goal, if you will, of having this incredible opportunity of having a human body with its sensory apparatus. And this brief moment we have on this planet Earth is to lead life into a fuller expression of wealth. So that's the story I'm playing with. And I look to all of you to help me refine that and bring more color and scope and depth and breadth to it, because I figure we all get to play in this game up to the very last breath. So let's make the most of it.
Thank you, Stuart. On behalf of Kinship Earth, all of our members and guests, we so appreciate your generosity. For more information about Stuart's work at Centered Wealth, please visit www.centered-wealth.com. This concludes part 1 of Kinship Earth Connections, April 16th, 2022. For a deeper dive into this topic, be sure to tune into our video part 2, where you can join the conversation of influence. And to sign up for our upcoming events, please visit us at kinshipearth.org.